Okay, here's an exclusive. Here's something you won't hear anywhere else. You won't find it on the internet, on the national news, pretty much anywhere, just here on the Transplant Helper. And that is 25-time singer, songwriter extraordinaire, someone whose career has spanned over 4 decades, sold more than 100 million albums. Stevie Wonder has just announced that he's going to be receiving a living donor transplant in September. That's exciting, right? Oh, come on. Not so much. You've heard this story everywhere. It's all over the internet. It's been on the national news. It's been all the major newspapers and news sources. Stevie Wonder is, however, going to be receiving in September a living donor kidney transplant. Now, this news came to light at the end of one of his concerts the other day. He was coming to a close in the concert. He decided then, I guess off the cuff, to announce to the audience there that he would be away for a little while because he was going to be having what he called some surgery. He went on to explain to them that actually he was going to be having a kidney transplant in September of 2019. He mentioned in the conversation as well that he would be receiving that via a living donor, that a donor had already been found, and people took to it. As a matter of fact, I'm told that when he made the announcement, basically the crowd stood up, standing ovation, screaming, cheering him on. That's the way it went. And you would assume that anybody who receives the precious opportunity, at least, potential for the gift of life, that everybody around would be cheering, everybody around would be excited. That's the way it would be. We would basically be praying for him and sending him on his way with our best wishes. But that's not always the case. There's always what I call some gangsayers, someone who has to be negative, someone who stands in the corner of the room and just kind of gives you that evil eye, who's always standing back, who's suspicious, who has accusation, who has something to bring up, something negative to say. And I tell people all the time, the fleas come with the dogs sometimes. Sometimes you get the bad apples, the discouraging people who come in right along with all the encouragers, all the people we really want to be around. And Stevie is not immune to that. However, the question that is basically being raised, it's one that we're talking about today, is the question, does Stevie Wonder or will Stevie Wonder get some kind of priority, some kind of favoritism, whatever, in getting and receiving this kidney transplant that maybe the common fella, common gal doesn't get? Well, the answer to that is probably in this case, yes, he does. Okay, just settle down. Don't be worried about it. But probably Stevie Wonder is getting a little priority. He is getting a little favoritism shown to him in this situation based upon him being a celebrity, based upon him being popular, wealthy, well-known, whatever you want to call that. He's probably getting a little bit of priority. Now, let me make note here that Stevie Wonder is certainly, absolutely certainly not the first famous person or celebrity ever to receive a transplant, and potentially even in that case ever receive maybe some favoritism or priority. Now, let me just name a few off for you. Back in, for example, in 2004, Steve Jobs, CEO of Apple, received a liver transplant. In 2017, Selena Gomez received a kidney transplant. George Lopez, famous comedian, 2005, received a kidney transplant. Alonzo Mourning, basketball star, 2003, received a kidney transplant. Natalie Cole, 2009, received a kidney transplant. Dick Cheney, 2004, received a heart transplant. Stevie Wonder, hopefully in September of 2019, will receive a kidney transplant again via that living donor. So celebrities, just like common folk, have always had the ability and the potential to receive transplants. Now, some again make the accusation that because of their fame, because of their wealth particularly, that they may be receiving some type of favoritism, some type of priority in that. And I do think that can be an issue in some cases, okay? Obviously, to receive a transplant for any of us, including myself, it took at least proving a way to pay, okay? Proving a potential and a way to pay, some way to financially, typically through insurance for most people, but a way to pay for the transplant on the side of the transplantee, if that's the word, the recipient, okay? Now, on the donor side, things are supposedly to be free, no problems there. If they decide to donate, or if you have a deceased donor in some cases, if the family decides to donate, no charge, no problem there. But on our side, things can get rather expensive. Things can get rather difficult, especially in many cases, like many of you are, where you may have to move across the country or move at least out of state or far away from home and put up roots somewhere else while awaiting on the transplant. There are advantages to being wealthy in that. For example, Steve Jobs, even though I think he had houses all over the world, I'm sure, but I think he primarily claimed like California as his home state. Steve Jobs received his liver transplant 2004. He received that actually in Memphis, Tennessee. And he was able to accomplish that because he had the means, he had the money to put up roots. I think he had a house temporarily in Memphis. He was able to move there and get that done. And other celebrities have done that in the past as well. Other people like us can do that as well if we just, can come up with the income to do that. But that's not really the discussion here. The question that's being brought up is Stevie Wonder potentially, again, receiving priority just because of his fame or just because of the access he has to finances? Well, again, I think to some extent he probably is, okay? But I'm not one of those people who's looking in on that negatively, who's trying to say something bad about that. I'm not pointing an accusatory finger at Stevie Wonder and say, you naughty, naughty boy, you ought not do that. As a matter of fact, I'm cheering him on, and I think the majority of us should be cheering him on, okay? Because every time anyone receives a transplant and they're famous and they're popular and they're wealthy, whatever, like this, a celebrity status, a world-renowned singer, that is a plus for all of us. Yes, he may get a priority and he may take a kidney that maybe, John Doe over here potentially could have gotten if he hadn't taken it. I get that, okay? And that's heartbreaking. But we hope and pray that eventually everything comes around, and eventually John Doe gets his transplant. I don't know how that's going to work out, but I do know this. By Stevie Wonder, especially in what he's already done, by stepping up to the plate beforehand, announcing the situation, telling the world about it, allowing it to be publicized, allowing it to be known, he draws tremendous influence and makes people, their heads snap. It makes people really stop and consider transplant, because so many times transplant does not get nearly enough time in the press, nearly enough time in the media. It's just not brought to itself the same attention that I believe, and that you would probably agree that it should. And so by celebrities like the ones I named right here, getting their word out there, allowing themselves to be used. I know Selena Gomez, I mentioned her kidney transplant in 2017. Since that time, she's constantly been back in the media talking about a transplant, talking about a recovery, talking about the need for living organ donors and such as that. And I think that is great, okay? The other day on a post, I actually saw what Roxanne Watson, and Roxanne, you're a hero among heroes as far as transplantees go. But Roxanne Watson put up a post, I don't remember the details of it, but she basically was talking about this same story about Stevie Wonder's situation. And she basically just told people to back off and get off. She made a point that every time, and she has these opportunities, I'm happy for her, but every time Roxanne, has a post on Facebook, for example, where she's met some kind of celebrity, where she's been to sit down to talk with Congress, or been on the news, even the national news. I think maybe a year or so ago, her house was remodeled by one of these nationally known, remodeling shows. Every time that has occurred, it has brought more and more attention to organ donation and the need for it. She has brought in countless thousands of organ donors, and a lot of that comes from the influence that she has, certainly, but also the influence of all these other people. So every time she makes a post with her standing beside whomever it is, who's famous, who's popular, that is something that is notable, okay? So I think it's great. I'm proud for you, Stevie Wonder. I'm proud for the opportunity. I hope and pray that things are going well enough in your health so that in September you'll be plenty healthy enough to go through with this. I hope that you make a good recovery, that you snap back. And I want you to know, Jim Merle, certainly, the transplant helper, I'm absolutely cheering for you. I'm your number one fan in this, fan of your music as well, but number one fan in this. I think it's great because I think there will be thousands of people eventually, and through the chain of things, saved by not only your decision to have the transplant and your ability to gain such, but your decision to share your story as you go. So Stevie, keep us updated. To all of you who are watching this, thank you so much. I would love to hear your opinions down below the video. Go down, scroll just past a few suggested videos. You'll find a comment section. Go ahead and start commenting. What do you think about this? What are the positives? What are the negatives to this system? And if and when he receives favoritism, and he may have something, I don't know who the donor's going to be. May have been a fan who said, I love Stevie Wonder, I'll give you my kidney. That stuff happens. That's good. But, talk about it in the comments below. I would love to hear your opinion. And then finally, comment below the video. Let me know first and foremost what organ you had transplanted or you're waiting for. And then if it's potential there for it, such as a kidney, liver, will you be expecting to receive a living donor? Is that your goal? Or will it more likely come out to a deceased donor? I'd love to hear about it. Again, thank you so much for joining me, folks. Thank you so much for always being a part of this channel. And I want to encourage you to just KOKO. That's keep on keeping on. And always, please, my friends, stay stronger.